Hi, welcome to our video. My name is Jordan Bradford with Burkholder Wealth Management. I'm here with our CEO and founder, Eric Burkholder. And before the end of the year, what we wanted to do was send out a little video with the question that we've posed is, what are good financial advisors doing to close out the year with their clients? So we've got about 5 different discussion points we want to bring up here. They're pretty quick, but I think they're really valuable things that financial advisors are doing with their clients right before the end of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off and get us started here. But the first one is required minimum distributions. Now we've talked a lot about this with clients. So I think we may have even done some videos and some posts in the past about RMDs. But these are a really big deal because if you miss your required minimum distribution, you could be looking at a potential tax bill of 50%. Now, just to make sure you heard that, that's 50, not 15. That's 50%. So you really don't want to miss taking your required minimum distribution by the end of the year.
It's a big deal. And, unlikely probably the government goes after you, but I don't want to give them any reason to go after me.
Right, exactly.
And we typically start that process if clients haven't done it, because a lot of clients aren't necessarily taking distributions throughout the year. We like to start that process in October because you never know what's going to happen. You want to make sure the paperwork's right, and so. But you still have time if you haven't done it.
And to use a real world example here, let's look at if someone has an IRA and they're turning 72 this year, and that IRA is worth $2 million. They're looking at a required minimum distribution of north of $70,000. So if you don't take that required minimum distribution by the end of the year, you could be paying a tax penalty of north of $35,000. That's a pretty big payment. I would prefer not to make to the IRS.
Exactly. And one more thing on the RMDs is, if there's a lot of, like I said, clients who are not using that money, if they're charitable minded, it's much better to do a qualified charitable distribution and give that to the charity of your choice. And it's even better than just a gift. It actually reduces your income, which can help on different things like Medicare costs and different tax brackets. So not only make sure you do them, but if you don't need that money, there are ways to even reduce your taxes further.
Yeah, that's a win-win.
Right.
Love those. So another topic we want to discuss, and something that a good financial advisor is discussing with their clients before year end, is qualified account contributions. So this is if you have a 401k, an IRA, Roth IRA, 403b, anything that you're investing in that is set aside specifically for retirement, you really want to make sure that you've made the correct contributions by the end of the year.
Right.
And you may still have a little bit of time to adjust some payroll at the very end of the year, but generally a lot of accounts, especially the ones where you're able to save a little bit more in, it's a hard deadline of December 31st.
Correct.
You can go back and make an IRA contribution at the beginning of the year, but if you're investing in a 401k at work, you want to make sure that you've made the amount of contributions that you want to make by December 31st.
Right.
And those limits are pretty high. In fact, I believe going into next year, they're going to be just north of 22,000. So we're seeing, that's a really effective way to put aside some money for retirement. But if you fail to do it by December 31st, then you're just out of luck for next year.
You're going to be limited on that side. I think a lot of people out there are not aware of that because, like you said, an IRA, SEP IRA, some other profit sharing things can happen all the way through tax filing, typically April for most people. But that employee contribution, the payroll deduction, has to be in by December 31st. And a lot of business owners are doing a solo 401k, or even just individuals with W-2. They may, for whatever reason, have not set it up to max before December because they wanted to plan or see how things went, and so you really need to up that contribution, for this last 2 or 1 pay periods to get to the max.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, you should also be double checking that you haven't over contributed either, because that is another problem that you want to fix, and you want to get ahead of that before that becomes a bit of a nightmare for you to readjust in the new year.
Yeah. Well, I'll take the next one. And so a big one, and this year, a really big one is tax loss harvesting. I think we've maybe mentioned that as well on another video, but it's really making lemonade out of lemons. And when the market is volatile and down like this year, there's some really great tax saving strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we described it before, but basically you can swap a fund or investment. It can't be for the exact same investment, but we do this very actively here.
Mm-hmm.
We have multiple small value funds, so we can swap one for the other, capture the temporary loss on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Clients stay invested, but now on their tax returns they can write that off.
Right.
And if you don't use it this year, you can carry it over, reduce tax liability in the future. And so it's really important to do it while the market's down,
Right.
and then before the end of the year, because we don't know, next year the market could recover, and so you really need to take advantage of these opportunities when you can. We've done it multiple times this year in some situations, and clients haven't lost anything, but now they have a lot to offset taxes. And so look at your portfolios. If there's anything in there that you're not married to, like I said, we kind of are agnostic about a lot of options, and that gives us the ability to swap between the two. And but for you guys out there, look at your portfolio, trade out of that. Hurts to see those red numbers, but you can turn it into a positive number on your tax return.
Exactly. And I think especially when we're in a year like 2022 where the market's been down almost the whole year, there's been very few points of time this year where the market's been positive. As we know, the markets generally go up over time. Mm-hmm. So taking advantage of that opportunity to grab some losses, use those to offset future gains, I think it's a no-brainer. I think anyone with taxable investments should be looking very hard at that, especially in a year like this year. And you do still have a little bit of time left to make those adjustments, but you got to do that one by December 31st. Right. Because if you do it on, January 1st is a holiday, but you do it on the first trading day of the new year, and that's for next year. So if the market's up at the end of next year, you may have just realized some gains by mistake. Right. So it's going to be a touchy thing, but you want to get that done, right before the end of the year if possible, if you haven't already been working on that.
Exactly. And then another big thing at the end of the year is mutual fund distributions. Mm-hmm. And so, we here use mutual funds and ETFs. We've gravitated more and more towards ETFs, but we still have both. And so one thing about mutual funds a lot of people don't realize is you don't pay tax on any trades that go on within that mutual fund throughout the year.
Right.
What happens is that mutual fund is responsible for keeping track of all those, and they will send out those gains in December typically. And so what can happen, even like a year like this year, it really will throw people off, is they have a growth fund, which is down for the year, potentially right now, if it's a growth fund down by a lot, and then they get a 5% taxable distribution to them. And it's like, well, what's going on? Well, back in January, when the market was not like it is now, they may have traded and made some gains, and then not been able to offset those gains for the rest of the year. So even though you got a loss, you got a taxable gain.
Right.
Sometimes that can't be avoided, but we really here actively want to make sure, especially if a mutual fund's owned in a taxable account, do we have an ETF alternative we can use? There are situations where we can't trade out of it, but if it's maybe a fund that we're, have been working out of, you want to make sure you sell that before that gets spit out.
Right.
Because also sometimes they spit out short-term capital gains. So you could sell, even if the position is up overall, and get long-term capital gains before they send you a short-term capital gains, which is going to be taxed at your income tax bracket. Right. So those are happening. We've already reviewed ours portfolio and made trades where it made sense, but there are other mutual funds out there that have not done that. So be aware. If you've waited to rebalance and you've been wanting to get out of something, it's a really good time to do that before those distributions come out and give you a tax bill you weren't expecting.
Yeah, and there's nothing that's worse than you get to the end of the year, your accounts have been down all year. That's nobody likes that, right? Nobody likes to see their ending balance lower than their starting balance, and that's across the board. Right. But to make matters worse, then you get a 1099 in the first quarter of the year that says that you owe taxes on that loss that you just had. So, get ahead of that as quickly as you can, and that's why I think having a great financial advisor who is on those things for you can really help, because it's going to hopefully prevent that heartburn in the first quarter of the year, when you have to write a check to the government for something that you didn't really actually get.
Right, exactly. And then I think for us, a big end of year thing, and the last thing I think we'll mention today is get a review scheduled.
Yes.
If you work with an advisor or you work with us, you've heard from us probably already, and it's a great time to schedule a review. We got this kind of quiet period before the holidays, maybe things are a little slower. Get that on the calendar. We like to do ours the first quarter, beginning of the year, so we can plan out the year. We can plan for taxes in April, kind of get the lay of the land, make sure your plan is still where it should be.
Right.
Are there any changes that need to be made? Are there any adjustments? Or is there new information that your advisor needs, or your spouse needs? I mean, it's good just to get on the same page, because if you say, oh yeah, that's good, I'll schedule in January, then it's February, then it's March, and then you're filing taxes and you're like, oh man, I should have scheduled this months ago. I mean, it happened, we all know, years fly by. And so use this quiet time to get that scheduled now.
Yeah, and a lot is happening in the beginning of the year, not just taxes, but this is when most people are doing their New Year's resolutions. And one of the more common resolutions is to be better with finances, maybe be more deliberate with your finances. And so I think that having that annual review with your advisor at the very beginning of the year gives both you and your advisor an opportunity to be on the same page for 2023. And to say, this is what I want to accomplish in 2023, and your advisor's job is to help you get there as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And I think that if you do that at the beginning of the year, your likelihood of achieving the goals that you're trying to achieve by year end are much higher than if you're having that review in the middle of the year, during the summer, between vacations. You've got all sorts of other things on your mind at that point, and you may have already been, you may have lost your either momentum that you had at the beginning of the year on your finances, and now it's just like trying to kind of turn the car around, if you will.
Exactly.
So get those in at the beginning of the year. I think it's a great time to do it.
Yep.
And then if you need another one at the end of the year, you can circle back, and you're basically just reviewing, did we do what we were supposed to do this year, and what's the next year? What do we need to do to prepare for the next year?
Right, exactly. It's always better to be reviewing the plan you've already put in place than trying to put a plan in November for the whole year. So
right. So we hope this content was really helpful. If you would like to meet with an advisor here, we're happy to schedule some meetings with you, get to know your situation, and if you have any questions, we're also here for that. So reach out to us, and we look forward to having a great 2023, and we hope you come along with us.
Absolutely.